Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I wanted to do this video about the after debate interviews with Tulsi Gabbard and why they were so important, and honestly, why she currently is hands down, bar none, the most important candidate on the stage. Not even close, okay? We need to ensure, first of all, I'd love to see her get the nomination. I don't know how real that could be, but we need to see her in the top 10, top 5. I mean, we need to throw our support behind Tulsi Gabbard on the Democratic stage because she's telling so much truth, and especially in the after show, that alone is an important issue. Now, I want to get all the detractors out of the way. I want to get all the people that think that I'm shilling for Tulsi Gabbard out of the way now. I don't love her stance on guns. She's a bit of a gun grabber. Not great. I know. She is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. She's addressed this. Doesn't excuse it. It's a fact. So we have to look at that as well. All right. She has kind of gotten a little soft on torture. She said that in certain cases torture may work. I'm not down with that. She's talked only about regime change wars, and she also invokes 9/11 a lot. Those are problems for me. Now, I know that she uses them as political weapons, but at the same time, I'm a straight from the heart, Johnny honest kind of guy. If you're not saying it in private, you shouldn't be saying it in public and vice versa, okay? You know, I don't like that kind of skill set. I think that in a lot of ways she's gotten a little soft on Syria recently, but one of the only people telling the truth there. Now, originally, I saw this video here of Tulsi Gabbard on MSNBC after the CNN debate talking about how this administration, the current administration, supports Al-Qaeda in Syria. Now, Trump actually alluded to this very thing when he was running for the President of the United States on the 2016 ticket, only it was the Obama administration. See, this is the real deep state military industrial complex nobody wants to talk about. Now, nobody touched it. Nobody touched it up on stage. There were 9 other candidates that had an opportunity to challenge what Gabbard had to say, but she had already tore Kamala Harris apart, and on great issues, by the way. Prison reform, imprisoning people for marijuana, laughing about it, the hypocrisy, privatized prisons. We're going to get to all of that. We're going to kind of do a full circle here. Because right here she explains, and again, no one challenges, not a moderator, Jake Tapper, nobody said anything. Because she's going to explain right now how we fund Al-Qaeda right now. Remember the people that our government told us that were behind 9/11? Please go watch Fabled Enemies. It's on my channel for free. Please. Thank you, Flick Off. Did you ever listen to the song I suggested? I would also like to recommend New World Order by Genocide. It has a heap of quotes from AJ back in the day. I haven't, but you know, Ministry actually quoted Loose Change in one of their, in Lies, Lies, Lies. They actually took Dylan's voice and distorted it. Another story. I'm getting off topic. I appreciate the super chat. Here we go. So watch this. And she won't challenge Tulsi Gabbard either. All right, there is no challenging, and this clip should be going viral. It's only on Tulsi's channel, and I've seen Jimmy Dore talk about it. But I'm going to tell you another thing. If you like this clip, and you should love it, by the way, you should love this clip because it is 100% juicy truth. Wait till she handles Anderson Cooper, just handles him and his military media industrial complex talking points. Anderson Cooper shows his true colors in that snaky interview. He's a snake.
You made a claim last night, Congresswoman, that you believe the president is a supporter of Al-Qaeda. You didn't have an opportunity to back up that claim with evidence. I'm going to give you that opportunity now.
This president has chosen to double down and triple down on an alliance with Saudi Arabia, a country that is the #1 propagator of the radical Wahhabi Salafist ideology that fuels terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
Boom. Now, I like how she threw in the ISIS there, because if you don't know about those John McCain ties to old ISIS, and you don't know about all those white helmet ties to Al-Qaeda, you better go check them out for yourself. Don't take Jason Burmis's word for it. Do a little digging. Do a little research. It doesn't take much. There's plenty out there. I just gave you a couple terms. If you look into, you'll be like, oh my goodness.
And secondly, this president has doubled down on support for al-Qaeda and continuing this regime change war in Syria, even threatening to use our own military to respond to anyone who tries to attack al-Qaeda in the city of Idlib in Syria, where they are in control of and have their stronghold. This is deeply concerning to all of us as Americans, but for me, especially as a soldier.
Now, before she starts talking about soldiers and, this is kind of the political bit, let's repeat what she just said. We're not allowed to attack al-Qaeda in Idlib because this is all about taking out Assad. This was always a regime change war in Syria. All right, it had nothing to do with the war on terror. It had nothing to do with getting rid of ISIS. We have been working with al-Nusra and other al-Qaeda affiliates throughout that entire deal. Even when it was just a CIA deal called Project Sycamore or Operation Sycamore. I think it was Project Sycamore. You can look that up. And you know what? Let's do it right now. Let's Syria and Sycamore. That's all we have to do. Timber Sycamore. I want to get things right. So that was CIA activities in Syria from 2012 to 2017. Not an ISIS operation, guys. An intelligence operation. Before Al-Qaeda was that. They were the Mujahideen, and we work with them in Afghanistan with a guy named Osama bin Laden against the Russians. Please watch my films, Fabled Enemies and Invisible Empire, or just do your own research. So let's continue here.
Who enlisted after the attacks on 9/11 to go after al-Qaeda, that terrorist group that took thousands of lives on September 11th. This is a huge betrayal to all of us, to all of our service members, to all of those first responders on 9/11, to every family that lost a loved one on that day.
So yes, it is a betrayal. But now we're going to show her with Mr. Cooper, Mr. Mainstream Cooper. Now, he kind of builds her up a little bit here because she really did take down Kamala Harris. So props for that. At least we didn't go attack dog right away. Builds a little trust here. Opens her up. But the points that are made here are great. So let's go over this really quick.
I want to play an exchange you had with Kamala Harris,
Sure.
Which obviously got a huge amount of attention. Let's watch.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record.
Now, let me just stop here. I like that little face she's making right here. Harris isn't ready for this. I would contend that I don't like the identity politics she introduced with it, but since Harris has played this and this is the Democratic debates, I see why she used it, because I really just think it's disproportionately affecting poor people. And I understand that minorities are disproportionately larger in that category, but there's plenty of poor people that aren't black or brown. Believe me, are we not supposed to take care of the poor Asians? I mean, come on, man. Or white people are just disregarded. I just don't like the color game, and I feel like especially the privatized prison system preys upon the poor, period. Doesn't matter what the color of your skin is.
There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so.
Think about that. More concerned about the win and being right than somebody else's life. If you're willing to put your reputation above the life of another human being, you know what you are? Like the literal life. You've already put them in prison, and you knew they were innocent, and you don't want the evidence out, but you're going to put them to death? That's not a sociopath? That's not a murderer? That's not a cold-blooded killer? And this is who the Democrats are pushing hard. The media is pushing like that fake Kamala versus Biden narrative. And remember, Tulsi Gabbard was the #1 search on and trend on YouTube or Google right after those first debates, and then all of a sudden Google suspends her campaign's ability to take on ads. She's suing for $50 million. She's a sitting member of Congress. She's successful in these debates, and no one's talking about this in the mainstream.
She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California, and she fought to...
Privatized prison system is very, very real. Why outsource overseas for a couple of cents more? You can get an English-speaking worker to be a telecommuter, can do all sorts of things for you.
Keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
You know, and she really didn't have anything.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system.
No answer here. None. She's taken it, but she was not ready for it, period.
Of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform.
She's talking a lot about reform. She didn't address any of the questions at all. You can see her getting mad. This is why Tulsi Gabbard, I think she got to talk for a total of just under 10 minutes in an almost, I think, 2-hour and 45-minute debate. There are 10 candidates up there, but split evenly, she should have gotten at least double that. Of course, it's not going to be split evenly. But given her stature and the way she's handling people, she should get at least 15, 16 minutes, right? No. And they still can't handle her.
How did you feel that went?
She never answered the question. She never addressed the issues that I brought up. And these are examples that have been widely reported and documented. I think the people deserve answers, given she said tonight a few times how proud she is of her record. Yet,
and remember, this is a social climber. That's what Kamala Harris is. She's a ruthless liar, lawyer, prosecutor, social climber that slept with another woman's husband to the top. A prominent man, Willie Brown. Look it up. San Francisco mayor. Go check it out yourselves. Okay? So when she calls out Kamala Harris, I'm loving it, and she's calling her out again on big issues, such as that privatized prison system and the fact that she would have rather seen a man die than have that prosecution that she was successful on go away.
there are too many people in California who have directly suffered, families who've been torn apart, people who have individually been harmed because of the decisions that she made as Attorney General.
You clearly, your team had done your research.
Look, even he was flustered. Like, again, he plays her up a little, but don't worry, Cooper's going to show those true snaky colors in just a moment because he doesn't really know how to come back. Nobody can come back with anything because everything she said was true.
And had facts down. Was your plan always to focus on her, or did you have other plans to focus on other people if the opportunities came up?
No, I didn't come into this with that kind of tactical strategy. Obviously, we're aware of the different positions that other candidates have taken, and given the opportunity, discussing this incredibly important issue of criminal justice reform, one where now there is bipartisan support to actually bring about the kind of change that we need to see. People like Kamala Harris need to be held accountable for their record, not for something that she said or did 50 years ago. This is something that she did in her last job.
Thank you. All right? In her last job. And, time doesn't really change people much. Over a long period of time, maybe a traumatic or a sudden incident can change people. Maybe a sudden environment change or a financial change. Those things can really change people. But at their core, most people, especially when they're being successful, the traits that make them successful, many of which are sociopathic, tend to gain traction, become more and more of who that person is. Just to let you know.
Before she was elected as a U.S. Senator.
In terms of health care, where are you on the spectrum of
We've been hearing a lot about that.
Yes, Medicare for all,
Yeah.
or improve Obamacare.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, first, let me just say our objective has to and must be making sure that no person, no American who is sick in this country should go without care because they can't afford it.
Now let's stop there. I'm actually for that, and a lot of people are going to call me some kind of socialist scumbag for that. But again, the medical industrial complex has gotten so out of control on what they charge you for aspirin at the doctors. This was not the way it was when it was the 80s and I was a kid. Even if you didn't have insurance, you could go see a doctor. You go pay, money. And slowly through the 90s, that system got more and more corrupt. In the early 2000s, now it's just out of control. Completely out of control. I don't know, but you're also seeing Anderson Cooper kind of transition. Built her up a little bit. Now let's start with one mainline talking point that, boy, remember, we were, what was it? I believe an hour and 40 minutes into those debates before Iran or any kind of foreign policy was even brought up, which was disturbing and disgusting. Go check out my interview and overview, AMA, with Robbie Martin of Media Roots. But again, now he's sliding in the Medicare for all. Wait till he get to the foreign policy. That's where he really starts being that snaky Cooper we all know.
That's why I have been and continue to be a supporter for Medicare for all that would guarantee that health care, that quality health care for every single American in this country. I also believe, like every other developed country in the world that has universal health care, that there is a role for private insurance to play for those who want it.
Thank you. It's a real simple concept. And yeah, believe me, if you gave everybody base care and you didn't allow Big Pharma to get out of control and do what they're doing where they are charging you 10 times more than Canada for insulin. That's a great point Bernie makes. It's ridiculous. It's insulin. It's a lifesaver for people. And you're telling me for some reason, or in Mexico, it's any different at this point? Come on, man. It's 2019. This is ridiculous. And no one's saying that if you don't want some kind of privatized care, you can't afford it. And can afford it, you can't have it. And when we get to socialized medical care, I also don't want any kind of, forced standards. It should be there for everybody, especially in the case of a medical emergency.
Do you think for those who are embracing taking away private insurance from people, ultimately, is that just strategically, politically, a non-starter?
I don't know about the politics of it. I just think about it from the perspective of people, of the American people, that if all of a sudden you are taking away their choice, that's not a very American thing, in my opinion. I think our responsibility as leaders is to meet the challenge and address the problems that people are facing, that they are suffering because of big insurance and big pharma's influence over our healthcare system for so long.
They're writing
how
the
they are
bills.
profiting on the backs of sick people. So let's do our job, try to bring down the cost of healthcare in this country that's exorbitant.
Exactly. And you know what? They didn't show that clip either, but she ripped Kamala Harris apart on that one as well, as she was talking about the bills. And she's like, no, Big Pharma wrote your bill. And then, no, I forget the exact person. She was like, that person just endorsed it. Bullshit. I mean, Kamala Harris sat up there and said she read the Mueller report. No, she didn't. She didn't read the Mueller report. Hand to God, she didn't read the Mueller report. Professional lawyer equals liar. So, again, Gabbard may have her problems, but this is where she really shines against Anderson Cooper.
Make sure people can get the quality care they need, and if they still choose that that's not what they want, they can go get the private insurance.
I asked Kamala Harris about that exchange. She certainly seemed, surprised that I think she was not expecting that from you. The only thing really she said about you is she said that you were essentially an apologist for Bashar al-Assad, that you would never criticize him as a dictator or murderer.
So you see how he did it? He slipped it in. Starts with the Medicare for all, and now it's like, well, Kamala said you love torturous dictators. Isn't that true? Don't you love Bashar al-Assad, a.k.a. Satan's right-hand man? A guy who was in a second world on the way to first world nation in Syria that wasn't causing trouble in the Middle East, but now all of a sudden, over the last 5 to 10 years has been a huge military target and someone we've been trying to overthrow by partnering with Al-Qaeda. But don't worry, Tulsi does a good job here.
I think it's unfortunate and a disservice to voters in this country that she resorts to cheap smears rather than actually addressing her record, the issues that I've raised, and the fact that she said she is proud of this record. If that's the case, then voters deserve to hear about why she's so proud of the lives that she has negatively impacted, the families that she's torn apart in California.
Boom! I love it. I mean, whap whap, 1, 2. Damn straight. Good job. Come on, guys. Again, you know, we went over in that first couple of minutes the criticisms of Gabbard, but killing it here. But don't worry, old Snaky McCooper, he's not going to stop. He's not going to let up till he gets an answer. You're going to say Bashar al-Assad's a bad, bad boy before this interview's over.
If voters are wondering, what is your take on Bashar al-Assad, what do you say?
My take is one of a soldier, where I've seen the cost of war firsthand. In Iraq, serving in a medical unit every single day, confronted with that high human cost of war. So I will never apologize for doing all that I can to prevent more of my brothers and sisters from being sent into harm's way to fight counterproductive regime change wars that make our country less safe, that take more lives, and that cost taxpayers trillions more dollars.
I mean, boom. Let me tell you what that was. She just stuffed the takedown, picked Cooper up, put him against the cage, and shoved a couple elbows into his face. I look at it like, hey, we're losing lives and money, Anderson. Stop with the bullshit. I mean, boom, killing it. This is why this woman needs to be on stage. She's not just killing it on the Democratic stage in front of all the other charlatans, all the other liars, all the people that won't tell you an ounce of truth and literally toe the establishment line all the way, okay? She's not only doing that, she's crushing it at the after party.
So if that means meeting with a dictator or meeting with an adversary, absolutely, I would do it.
Do you
this is about
consider
the
him
national security of our country.
I understand that position. Do you consider him a torturer or murderer?
That's not what this is about.
Thank you. Do you the third time, number 3, Cooper will get the damn answer. Is he a torturer and a murderer? But he's a torturer and a murderer, right? Let's stop that for a minute. Who are the torturers and murderers? Now, do you think Assad goes into a room and tortures and murders people? Is that what Anderson Cooper's saying? Is that how you think politics works? Let me ask you something. Is George W. Bush and Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib prison under that administration where we know torture and murder happened, and we're not even going to talk about shock and awe and all the other smart bombs, are they torturers and murderers? Is he? Good old W? What about the Barack Obama administration? Kept Guantanamo Bay open, huh? Lots of atrocities under that. Is he a torturer and a murderer? You see what I'm getting at, old Anderson? Shows his true colors here. His true colors shining right through old Snaky McSnake. But don't worry. He's going to make Tulsi weigh in on that torturer and murderer and Assad.
I don't defend or apologize or have anything to do with what he has done to his own people.
But if you're president of the United States, it's fine if you want to meet with somebody, but there's traditionally a role of the president of the United States calling out human rights abuses overseas. Bashar al-Assad is head of a regime which has disappeared many people as his father.
Here's the way that I look at it, and the kind of leadership, the example of leadership that I follow is one where Kennedy met with and worked with Khrushchev to forge a deal that would keep the American people safe.
So now we're doing Kennedy Khrushchev. Very smart. Gabbard's extremely intelligent.
Where obviously Reagan met with Gorbachev, Roosevelt met with Stalin, worked with Stalin. Nixon met with Mao. These are the kinds of leaders who think about things at a very practical and real level about how to keep our country and the American people safe.
Stalin murdered 20 million people.
That's my point, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's her point, Anderson, is that obviously Stalin's history isn't the best, and we still worked with him so that people didn't die over here. And now, Anderson Cooper, he's going to speak for Roosevelt. He's going to speak for FDR. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Cooper. Of course you're going to speak for FDR because you were in the head of FDR during the old World War II days, right? That was you, right? You were the guy. He was the guy. He was right by FDR. He knew exactly what he was thinking.
Right.
Yet Roosevelt not only met with him, but he allied with him to bring about an end to that war.
But I'm sure Roosevelt would have acknowledged that Stalin murdered millions of people.
I mean, again, you're gonna answer the damn question, Tulsi.
You don't want to.
I don't dispute that. Again, my focus.
But you won't say anything about that, about Bashar al-Assad.
I've been very outspoken about this before. These are things that are being used as detractions away from the central issue, which is we are still waging a regime change war in Syria today. We still have troops in Syria today, troops who are dying. That's my focus. That's why I'm running for president, to bring about this sea change in our foreign policy.
I hadn't planned to go down this road, but I understand.
Oh, you didn't plan to go down this road. This is the only road you plan to go down, you fucking liar. This was the plan of it. Look at this little smirk. I didn't plan to go down on this road. No, it's old Snaky McSnake easing into it, getting one establishment talking point in, and then I love war. I want more people to die. But I'm not a racist when brown people over there die on behalf of my beloved military-industrial complex and on behalf of my beloved intelligence community. We never go after the Trump administration for foreign policy in Syria or Yemen. That just doesn't happen. Don't you know how the game works, Tulsi? Say he's a murderer and a torturer.
I understand the not wanting to get involved militarily, and certainly as a veteran, you have more of a right than anybody to talk about that and have an opinion about it. Just on a factual basis, Bashar al-Assad is a murderer and a torturer.
I believe that's number 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. It may be like the 5th time he says it, but it's the 7th time he's demanded an answer. Murderer and torturer. He is a murderer and a torturer. I think FDR would have acknowledged he's a murderer and a torturer. Stalin, blah, 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 blah.
Do you not agree with that?
I don't dispute that.
You don't dispute that. Okay. You said something on the stage that really I found very powerful, and I think people who do not have who have not served overseas, who do not have a loved one currently serving, who have served, understand. The word you used was betrayal.
Now, again, I am impressed that Tulsi was able to go here after. Once again, Cooper made her say it. Assad's a bad man. He's a murderer and a torturer. He's a murderer and a torturer. But this last couple of minute wrap up by Tulsi is just superb. This is where she really shines, even brighter than where she was on MSNBC.
Yeah.
Can you just talk to me a little bit about where you see that and how that motivates you?
This is something that I've lived. And so many of my brothers and sisters in uniform have suffered the consequences of leaders who have lied to us as an excuse to go and wage a regime change war, to topple a dictator. Mm-hmm. It was very intentional.
Damn right it was again, Timber Sycamore. Timber Sycamore. Go check it out. CIA 2012. And believe me, there was covert action going on in Syria through proxies long before there.
Over 4,000 of my brothers and sisters in uniform were killed as a result of that. So this is why I'm so serious and so focused about bringing about the kind of change to our foreign policy that will end these wasteful wars, that work to end this new Cold War and arms race, all of these things making our country less safe, making the American people less safe, taking the lives of more of our service members, what to speak of the cost on the American people. Now, when I speak about betrayal, it's something that is continuing. We've seen it in Iraq and Libya and Syria.
I like how she threw in Libya there and started with Iraq. I mean, she just takes these 2 minutes to the extreme. Again, she killed it on stage, and she's taken over the after party.
Cost and consequence of these continued regime change wars, and how this president, and I mentioned this briefly before I ran out of time, is continuing this betrayal through his direct and indirect support of al-Qaeda.
Damn right.
In places like Syria. Syria is in the city of Idlib. It is the headquarters for al-Qaeda.
The headquarters for al-Qaeda in Syria. Remember, al-Qaeda, just so you know, is the terrorist group, if you will, that we gave through the AUMF, the authorization of the use of military force the week after 9/11, that gives us carte blanche to just attack any nation we want. Mike Pompeo has tried to invoke that very thing to attack Iran recently. Let that sink in. And you know what? We're going to talk about that right now. We're going to take a little break. We're going to type it in, AUMF 2001, okay? There it is. So we can look at it together. It's very short. But Al-Qaeda is the reason, okay? Let's hit Control F. Let's see. Bam, bam, bam. Let's get down to it. General. Terrorist. Oh, don't tell me it's not in there. Come on. Let's download it and like actually open her up. Right? Let's do that. Show in folder. And then bam. And we're going to just go right into it. Sorry, guys. Doing it on the fly. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. That's how we do it here. So here we go. So the authorization, we've actually read this on air before. But the authorization, because of the September 11th attacks, you know, we got to go in there and we got to get Al-Qaeda. That's it. This is the War Powers Resolution. This is it. Let's get the terrorists who are responsible for 9/11. And remember, we blamed Al-Qaeda, but now we use this against everything. But we protect Al-Qaeda currently in Syria. Anybody can download this thing. September 18th, 2001. Mike Pompeo, 100% using it. Let's look that up really quick, too. For everybody that might doubt me, that says, oh, they wouldn't use that today. I mean, especially when we're working with Al-Qaeda to take out somebody, right? AUMF, Iran. Little magic button combination. Oh, wow, you recently did that? Huh. Oh, wow. That's him, huh? Oh, you did that. Huh. That's, wow. Yeah, they want war. There it is. So let's let Tulsi finish it up really brilliantly, explaining that this administration continues to support Al-Qaeda.
Now, Trump is still trying to overthrow the regime of Assad, and he has threatened anyone who goes after Al-Qaeda in this city of Idlib, where they are in control of the whole city, then he will use our military to go against whoever attacks him there. This is a betrayal to me, every single service member, every single family who lost a loved one in the attacks on 9/11, every single American.
But that does sound like, I mean, a talking point of the Assad regime. I mean, that.
You see it? There you go. Oh, man. That sounds like a talking point of the Assad regime. Old Snaky McCooper bringing back his snaky military
industrial complex. Every single family who lost a loved one in the attacks on 9/11, every single American.
But that does sound like, I mean, a talking point of the Assad regime. I mean, the Assad regime has said.
This is just about the truth. I mean, Brett McGurk himself, who served under the Obama administration and again under the Trump administration, he was been quoted saying that Al-Qaeda is stronger than ever before and their stronghold is in Idlib. So why is Trump then making threats to anyone who threatens to go after them in Idlib that he will use our military to go after them? How do you explain that? How do you explain that to the 9/11 first responders, people who are still dealing with the after effects of that attack?
There you go. And I'll tell you how you explain it. This is how you explain it. Al-Qaeda wasn't responsible for 9/11 in the way that our government has told us. It was an international intelligence operation with operatives that came in from a CIA base for the most part, which was a Saudi consulate in Saudi Arabia. Many of the hijackers were trained at military bases here. Some lived with an FBI and rented from an FBI informant, Khalid al-Madar among them. Walid al-Shiri had the CIA called on them. A group called Able Danger was also tracking the hijackers. On top of that, you had other Israeli operatives also trailing these people, and at the same time, Amdocs and Converse were suspected of being used on surveillance of many, many agencies here in this country. In fact, a lot of that group was rounded up before 9/11. Then some of that group was caught on 9/11, and more were rounded up after 9/11. Oh, that's odd, isn't it? And we also had those war games that mirrored the attacks of multiple hijackings going on at the same exact time at a Cheyenne Mountain. And we had doomsday vehicles on the scene. What? Oh, yeah. All the doomsday planes just happened to be caught on camera on the scenes of these attacks at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Operational command centers for Armageddon, government or a shadow government planes. Just so weird. And if you doubt anything I've said right there, that's why we work with Al-Qaeda in Syria, because they're a proxy force of ours, just like the Mujahideen was in the late 70s and 80s. And Pakistani intelligence is in there too. They helped fund it. That's why they were wiring money to Atta and others. That's why we work to them to this day. No one ever talks about that with Biden, even though he's admitted it. All in my film, Fabled Enemies. That's why. That's the answer. And until somebody gets up on stage and does that and says those things, we're still in trouble. But at the same time, Tulsi Gabbard told a lot of truth there. She's far from perfect. Again, I went through a lot of the things that I thought were problems in the very beginning, but we give credit where credit is due. So kudos to her. And, thank you, Tulsi, for spitting truth even after the event. Folks, if you like my stuff, I'm doing 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 videos a day on all sorts of subjects. We're not just talking about Gabbard. We do a little MMA at times. You know what? We did the Sandy Hook deposition on Jones. We were at the forefront of the Dark Overlord files and deep dives. We did a deep dive into the FOIA request of the dancing Israelis. We're going to be doing a follow-up broadcast on that. I'm trying to make that a big deal and get a special interview, so we'll see what we're able to do, but I'm working on that. Of course, on the forefront of NXIVM, Jeffrey Epstein, MK Ultra, Bilderberg, the truth about Syria, Assange, WikiLeaks, transhumanism, the technopoly, big pharma, and so much more. So if you're new to the game here, now's the time to join the Burmese Brigade. Please thumbs this video up, share it, sub, and ring that bell for notifications. Like I said, we do deep dives like that one, but sometimes into documents and news stories. On top of that, we do walk and talks, and I think some of the best interviews out there with some of the best in the game, people like James Corbett, who was recently in the limelight because they just demoted his Federal Reserve documentary after Chris Hayes said it was bad. It's so bad. We have Robbie Martin of MediaRoots.org on all the time, and I have confirmed we're going to have Whitney Webb of Mint Press, all about Epstein and his connection to Roy Cohn this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So you don't want to miss that either. And guys, I'm doing this with your support. That's how we're doing it. And we're at that exact halfway point, 19 days in. I think I got like 11 or 12 days to try to make up that ground. So we're going to hit the grind. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all on the flip side.